Did everybody sleep well after yesterday? Oops. Bring everything, Johan. Don't leave stuff behind. Did everybody sleep well after yesterday? I think a lot of us are still asleep. It seems that only the brave are showing up this morning. All the crazy ones. Probably the ones that actually went out partying last night like we did. At our hotel pool bar, drinking cocktails until 3 in the morning and then finishing presentations until 5. To then go to breakfast and then figure out and then ask yourself the question, what the hell am I doing here? And then you end up here to talk about Joomla. Well, so this presentation was made yesterday afternoon during a poll talk, yesterday night at 3 and from 3 to 5. I call it Product Project or Both, the Joomla Dilemma. First question, who of you uses Joomla? Good. Anybody that uses Drupal? You can leave. Is there anybody that uses WordPress? Yeah, you're kind of okay. Just because they got 8 years old 2 days ago. By the way, if Matt is looking, happy birthday, WordPress. Who is making money or earning a living with Joomla? Okay. That's almost everybody again. Well, not that many people in the room yet. Third question. Who thinks, in one way or another, he is contributing something back to Joomla? He's making Joomla change in a way. That's interesting. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people. Of everybody here, that's probably no less than half. If there are probably more people in the room, probably a little bit less. We'll come back to that later. Now, and then this needs to work. I need to put it down, right? It has an on button. Yeah, there we go. You ever read the Joomla website and clicked on About Joomla? Ever done that? This is what it says. Joomla is an award-winning content management system which enables you to build websites and powerful online applications. Many aspects, including its ease of use and extensibility, have made Joomla the most popular website software available. And there is something else that is there, which is this one. Best of all, Joomla is an open source solution that is freely available to everybody. And most of you will look at the top two and go, that's just cool. Man, that last one, open source, freely available. That basically means it's free as in free beer, right? We can just get it. So I want to focus on that last little sentence. It's a tiny little sentence with a lot of meaning to it. It's about freedom to start with. And somewhere, somehow, all of us are a little bit punk rockers in our own little way, doing things in our own little way, trying to focus on, and like it says here, punk rock means freedom, liking and accepting what you want as long as it has passion to it. For open source developers and people contributing to open source projects, there's a lot of truth in that. In their own way, they're part of the punk culture. Open source is also a result of punk culture, like many other creative forms that we find today. Question. It's morning, I know, so I'm going to try to keep you awake. I have a few questions. First question. Open source is free, as in free beer. Who says yes? No one? Who says no? And that's the thing, right? That doesn't match, guys, right? If you say yes, then you need to raise a finger. If you say no, then you raise a finger, and there isn't anything in between, right? It's either yes or no. So who says yes? And who says no? Who is right? No. It's not free as in free beer. Right? So, what What does the free mean in open source? The freely available that is on the first slide. That freely available doesn't mean free as in free beer. It doesn't mean free of charge. These are many different languages that explain what free means. And all these languages have two ways of explaining the concept freedom and the concept free beer as in free of charge. Only English doesn't do that. In English, free as in free beer and free as in freedom means the same thing. But the free in open source means free as in freedom. There are many freedom success stories. For example, eBay, which is freedom of trade. Google is freedom of advertising. YouTube, freedom of video production. You can put your own videos on YouTube. Linux, there's a freedom over operating system. IKEA, freedom of furnishing. You go to IKEA, you buy what you like, you take it home, and you furnish. Joomla is freedom of building websites. Now, what does freedom and free software and open source have to do with each other? Well, at the left you see Tim O'Reilly holding up a plaque, open source. At the right you see Richard Stallman, the guy that is behind the free and open source movement. He says, well, free software, say free software and not just open source software, because free software also says that freedom matters. If you call something open source software, does that make it free software? No. Right? It's not because the source code is available and you can look at the code that it is free software, that there's freedom in that. Is it because it's free software that it's also open source? Yes. Right? If there's freedom in the software, then the code is also going to be available. And that goes back to the free software definition. Free software like Joomla and like WordPress and like Drupal give you 4 freedoms. Those are your rights. You know them? You ever read the free software definition? This is the link. It's a nice text on the website of the FSF or the GNU.org website. First one, the freedom to run the program for any purpose, including setting up websites like WikiLeaks. The freedom to study the program and change it. The freedom to distribute copies to your neighbor. And finally, and even more importantly, the freedom to distribute modified copies. Any software that is free software that uses a free software license allows you to do that. And what do most people do? They do the first and maybe the third. But you also have the freedom to study and change it, to modify it, and to make those modifications available to anybody that wants them. That's a very important freedom because that's how we as an open source community work, how we improve ourselves. The free and open source definition. This is a nice document you should read if you're working with free and open source software. Just because then you at least know what you're working with and how it is philosophically intended to be used. Joomla is licensed under an open source license that gives you those 4 freedoms. It's called the GPL, the General Public License. That license doesn't only give you those 4 freedoms, it also says something extra. And you know what that is? developing extensions for Joomla. For clients, for yourself. Ever read the GPL? Yes? Who did? Who read the GPL? You should all have read it. Right? Shame on you for not reading it. It's the most important document that there is to understand what the software, what the freedoms of the software are, and how the software is intended to be used legally. It's how we work together. It's in that document. There's one extra thing, there are a few others in there, but there's one very important thing that the GPL says. The GPL says that if you make a modification to the software and distribute that, then you also need to distribute that modified work as GPL. They call that creating a derivative. A derivative can also be an extension. If you create an extension for Joomla that is going to use the Joomla APIs, that is going to use the Joomla framework, or for WordPress, or for Drupal, or anything that is licensed GPL, then you need to redistribute that as GPL. Why is that important? Why does that help us? Because automatically, by making a modification, and you need to license the GPL, you don't need to, but you can make it available. And somebody else can take that and put it back in, or use it, or do something else with it and improve it. It becomes part of the big common called the Joomla codebase. Right? We don't need permission from anybody to use GPL work. It's just there. We could just take it. And the 4 freedoms tell us what we could do with it. This is how we evolve Joomla. At least should be evolving Joomla. Question. Open source is a business model. Who believes that that is true? Who believes that that isn't true? Okay, we are divided. That's good. A little bit of dividing always gets you for a good argument. Are you the Drupal folks? Or are you probably spies from Richard Stallman that are in the audience just for this morning session? It could be. Maybe we need to get bodyguards next time. You know? Frisk people, like a questionnaire, before they get in? No? Answer, no. Of course not. How can you sell something that is free in the first place? Now, what is it then? Is it communism? Right? Some have claimed that, right? And this one is a very nice campaign that was made by our friends from Microsoft. And it says, when you program open source, you're programming communism. Is that true? No, of course not. So what is free and open source software from a business model perspective? Well, it's not a mystery, it's not a religion, it's not a charity, it's not anti-commercial, it's not against ownership, it's not socialism, it's not communism, it is not a business model, it is simply a smarter way to build, produce, and distribute software. That is all there is to it. And that's all an open source license defines. Does that mean you cannot earn money with it? No, you can. It's not anti-commercial, but it's not a business model per se. So how do you make profit with free and open source software if it's not a business model? Well, first of all, what defines an open source product, a free and open source product, from anything else is that you're catering to serve 2 groups of people that any proprietary product cannot serve. You're serving the people that have time, that want to spend time to save money. People that come to you and say, hey, I don't have money, but I want to help. What can I do? Right? Let me help and give me whatever we are working on together in return. And two, you have people that want to spend money to save time. The first group we call contributors. The second we call customers. In proprietary software, there is only that second group. There are only people that can spend money to save time. Why? Because you're only selling it. You're not allowing anybody in to help you change it. Microsoft, prime example. Ever tried to knock on the door from Microsoft and say, hey, you know what? That Windows source code, I think I found a few bugs. Can I see it? Maybe I can help make a few changes that'll help improve your software. I actually asked the question a year ago at an event. I got a very avoiding answer to that question. Right? So, two groups. If you're commercially working with open source, it is very important that you recognize those two groups. It is also very important that you understand that if you differentiate in the wrong way between the two, you're not going to have a lot of business left. Right? Because your customers are not your contributors and your contributors are not your customers. You shouldn't consider your contributors as sales channels like a lot of open source products try to do. They see their potential contributors as people they can send emails to and newsletters to, advertising their commercial offerings. It doesn't work. These people are not interested in paying. They're interested in participating. So, if open source is not a business model, what are potential open source business models? There are a gazillion of those. A few examples. We need donations and funding and subsidies to survive. Apache Software Foundation, Eclipse, Open Web, and others. We sell and add placements, Mozilla. If you use Mozilla web browser and you open it up, you end up at which hub? Google. Why do you end up in Google? Ever asked yourself that question? Because Google, for any ad clicked through Mozilla, Google is paying the Mozilla Foundation and the Mozilla company a shitload of money. And that's good, because it allows them to build free and open source software. That's a business model. If you embed it in closed source, you pay a fee. MySQL, Funable, DB4 Objects, Trolltech, maybe a few lesser known companies. There's a business model there. Services are for a fee. Covalent, Ubuntu Canonical, you know, making the Ubuntu operating system. If you want their services, you pay for that. There are a lot of Joomla companies that offer services, offer their extensions freely downloadable. If you want their service, you pay for that. It's their business model. Another one, ongoing maintenance, monitoring, and provision of binaries is for a fee. This is what Red Hat, JBoss, and MySQL do. Some enterprise features are for a fee. Sugar CRM, Zimbra, sold to Yahoo, Jaspersoft. We build closed products around it. Enterprise DB and Greenplum. Hardware is for a fee. Sun, Asterix, and others. And a few more. We sell everything else on the planet, including closed source software. If you're big enough, you can do that. And finally, this is not our real business model, Ruby on Rails, which has a lot of individual contributors. We regret it, Borlog with Interbase. And last but not least, since we bought Sun and we are stuck, and now we're stuck with it, Oracle. You all know what happened with Sun and the fact that Oracle bought Sun and at the same time acquired a lot of open source software. You know what happened with most of that open source software? It became closed source software. You know what happened with OpenOffice? It became separated, LibreOffice. It was forked. Right? Which again makes VCs think twice the moment they start investing in open source, but that's a completely different story. Now, so Open source is not a business model, and open source is about freedom, which is not free as in free beer, but it's freedom that matters. How does that apply to Joomla? Ever thought about that? You're working with it daily, right? It's your business, it's your living. Ever considered how that all applies to Joomla? Okay, I'll help. First question. Joomla is a product. Who says yes? Who says no? We are divided. I like it. It's always good. Two camps, a match, and we can cheer either way. Well, he's a smart guy. But he's Dutch and he's a cheater, but that's another thing. I can do that because I live close to him. Okay. Answer, no. Joomla is not a product. Why not? For the simple reason that from a commercial perspective, there are too many barriers to adopt it in an enterprise context. Barriers like lack of formal support, lack of a roadmap, the velocity of the constant change, the functional gaps, the licensing types, the lack of endorsements. All those barriers introduce risk. And if there is one thing what a product tries to do, it is lower risk. Choosing Joomla is a high risk. Open source projects like Joomla, they don't generate products, they generate software. They don't generate what you call in economical terms a whole product. A whole product is something that reduces your risk of investing in it. Joomla doesn't do that. There is nothing in Joomla that helps you as a user reduce your risk of using and investing in it. Joomla is a project that is focused. Joomla is a community that is focused on building a project. And it does that using what we call the open source principles. The better these principles are implemented, the more vibrant the project will be, and the bigger the change and the evolution. What are they? First of all, what I already explained. It's free as in freedom, not zero cost. Second, the principle of openness. The principle of openness means that you are able to participate. There are tools and resources that allow you to participate in building and creating Joomla. That can be through bug trackers, through forums, through wikis, writing documentation. There are many different ways of doing that, but they are there and they're openly available. The only thing you sometimes need to do is register. The principle of transparency. Anything that involves the interaction of people with each other around Joomla should always be transparent. Any decision that is made should have a transparent process to it that allows you to know how that decision was made. The principle of early and often. We release software almost every day. Every time we make a commit to an SVN, we make a change, it actually becomes released because you can immediately get it. Early and often. We don't crawl behind the wall and then we work and then suddenly when there's time we throw it over the wall. That's what companies do with proprietary products. They give it to you when they call it ready. And the expectation of community. The expectation of community means people will expect to be able to participate. When there is openness, transparency, and where it is early and often, there will be an expectation that they can participate and engage with what you're doing. So, the community itself is the byproduct of the project. And the project is a byproduct of the open source principles. If you're planning to build your own open source project, and I know because I'm doing it, this is your Bible. Do that very well, and it just happens. Don't do it, and it won't happen. It's that simple. So, okay, so it's not a product. It's a project that is the result of implementing the open source principles. Is there a Joomla business model? Yes or no? Yes. See, I'm confusing people here, and that's fun. No, there is no Joomla business model. Who says no? And the others are scared of putting their finger in. Okay, so only a few say yes. Of course there is. How can we ever build Joomla if we cannot make money doing it? Right? Who are we? The Pope? Right? A religion? No. Of course we need to earn money. Of course we need a business model. How does that business model look like? Well, it's a little bit more complex than what you traditionally would expect. I call it, and I don't call it, it was research done by Pentaho in 2009. They call it the beekeeper model. And it works like a beehive. In the middle, you have the bees. At the right side, you have the guy that gathers the honey, the end product. And he's taking that to market. He's going to sell that to its customers, which you see here. These are the honeycombs, the raw material that the bees gather. And here you have your beehive with your queen bee that actually runs this whole thing. Right? Here you have your project, and here you're taking it to market as a product. How does that look like in Joomla? It looks like this. In the middle you have your community. And that community is contributing to the project. Some people might be considered core developers. They are making an engagement to almost work daily on Joomla. Contributions can be a lot of things. Use cases, peer review, testing, documentation, translations, features, forums, bug fixes, scalability, configuration, codes, and news. And a lot more. Here, you have service providers. And these people, they go to market. They have sales, they do marketing, they implement Joomla, they reduce risk, they make it a whole product. They make the honey, the raw code, into something a customer can be interested in. And here you have your customers. What happens, or what should happen, is that these people here, based on the work they do, they also contribute to that community. There is stuff flowing back. There's not only stuff going this way, it flows in both directions. Now, who is this part here? You! Right? It's not easier and not harder than that. You're sitting here. It's you. You're all working commercially with Joomla. You're all service providers. You're all implementing your own business models based on your own markets, based on your own ideas. And you're using raw code, raw honey to do that, which is Joomla, and you add to that, and you bring that to your customers. At the same time, whoops, I need to go. Don't want that. At the same time, what you guys are doing here should also flow back in that direction. So, is there a Joomla business model? Yes, there are many. There is not one, there are many. And you are sitting here. The business models are sitting in these seats. A good exercise, actually go and talk to somebody and figure out how he's making money with Joomla or with open source. Learn from that. Now, the future. We know that Joomla is about freedom and free and open source software. We know that Joomla is a project that exists because the open source principles are implemented. We know that there are businesses implementing business models around that project to create it and make it a product. How does that create future? Well, if we continue doing what we're doing today, we will not have a future. We will end up with a very big black hole. Why? Here's why. This is statistics from OLO, a service that monitors the activity in the Joomla project. This is the amount of committers that worked on Joomla per month over the past 6 years. This is the development of 1.5. At its peak, there were 20 people active during a certain month at the end of 2007 to release 1.5. This is 1.6 and 1.7. This is your black hole. Here's another one. These are the amount of commits, the amount of actual code changes being made. This is the amount of honey that is being produced. This is Joomla 1.5 with a high peak of development in 2006 and then slowly going down towards a stable code base. This is what happened afterwards. That is a crash and burn. Like it or not, but that's reality. So, how are we going to fix that? Well, we, as in we, need to fix that. How? By what we do here, make that flow back there. If you're going to wait and sit until somebody else is going to do it, it's not going to happen. Why? Well, the thing is called Joomla, right? It's called all together, which means all together. You are Joomla. It doesn't get created for you, it gets created by you. If you continue doing what you do, you get this. Your business, your investment, your passion will be crashing and burning. So how do we solve that? We take it back. Paul Delius wrote a week ago this. It's our community, our technology, our project. Let's not give anyone the illusion of control over its future. Let's break down whatever stands in the way of original ideas, experiments, open minds, and progress. That's the only way that that raw beehive, that hive of bees, will be able to do what it does. By letting the control go and implementing the pure chaos. And that's what punk is all about. Now, I can complain, I can try to explain, but I'll also try to offer a few suggestions. Ask me how I became a pirate. There's a very good book on this topic. It's called The Piracy Dilemma, which is also why this talk is called The Joomla Dilemma. Look it up on Google and read the damn thing. It talks about why we, as millenniums, as people in our early 30s, from our 20s to our early 30s, are doing things a little bit different, but are very successful doing that. First of all, trade influence over control. I didn't say that, Simon Phillips did, which is a very influential open source contributor. What Simon said was trade control for influence, because in a meshed society, control gets marginalized while influence delivers success. If we try to keep controlling Joomla, it will die. We don't need trademarks. We don't need rules. We don't need regulations. We need influence. We need to allow people to do what they do best, participate. We need to stop marketing Joomla as a product. It's not a product. Unless Joomla is led by a strong technical team, it will fail. We need technical vision to build the future of Joomla, to solve problems of tomorrow and not of yesterday. And an end user, a client, is not going to tell you what the problems of tomorrow will be. He will tell you what his problems today are. And that's fine, but it doesn't help us to evolve. And finally, we need community-driven participation. Community and project are verbs. You do them. Open source doesn't improve by the use of advocacy, mindshare, by having 10 millions of users. It improves by participation and contribution from its community, and I wrote a blog post about that a few days ago. You can sell as many solutions to your clients as you want. You can organize as many events as you want to talk about it. You can create a very global brand. You can have millions of users and 2.5% of the internet. If nobody participates, it will die. So, summary. False businesses, and that's all of you, won't work unless you save both those who spend time to save money and those who spend money to save time. It's the people that want to participate and contribute versus the people that want to buy. You have both. And be lucky that you have those. Because you're doing something that proprietary software, proprietary business models have not succeeded in for years. Open source projects generate software, they do not generate whole product. Commercial open source does. In Joomla, you are commercial open source. You are service providers. You make that raw code into a product with your own means, your own market, your own customers, your own business models. And finally, Joomla will only have a future if we're able to evolve it through participation, influence, and strong technical skills. Conclusion, and that goes back to project, product, or both. It is both, but it should be equally both. At the moment, it's 99.9% product. It's 2.5% of the internet, and it's great and it rocks. And it's crashing and burning like hell on the contributor and project side. There should be balance. Conclusion, we need to find a ways to create that balance. And then, we together will be a successful open source project. Only then. And now, I'll take questions.
Johan, it is Ryan.
All right.
One of the things that you've said often, and you said today, is let's claim back our Joomla, and then you also say we need to take it back.
Yes.
The question is, from whom did
was
Joomla taken from?
First of all, I didn't say that. I quoted Paul to start with. I do believe that is the case. Otherwise, I hadn't quoted it.
So the question is, who took it from you, and who do you need to get it back from? And how did they take it from you?
The people that at the moment are calling themselves the Joomla leaders are leading by status. They're not leading because they're given the respect to lead. If you want to lead by status, you get a dog and you buy a leash. And the dog will follow you, right? You will drag him behind you. If you want to lead in an open source project, you lead by doing, by earning respect, by earning the merit to be considered a leader. If you don't allow people to earn that merit, then you're taking it from us. If you don't allow people that actually work very hard to lead, even if you disagree with them, then you're not a meritocracy. Then you're not driven by the merit that these people put into your open source project. If you lead by not implementing open source principles, by losing transparency, by not being open, by controlling instead of trying to influence, then you're taking it from those who are willing to do that. And there are many that are willing to do that and that are crying out loud to be able to do it, that are not getting heard. Because the only thing that Joomla is telling them, the world is great, we have 2.5% of the internet, and as I showed you in my slides, well, that is true, but still contributions are going down like that. The first goal of the project is to create the software that we all need to evolve, build business, and then contribute back. Without that core, there is no future. That's what I mean by taking it back. And it might be good that you read the blog post that Paul has written on the subject.
So just for clarification, the current leadership of the Joomla project is the people that you're taking it back from?
Yes.
Thanks.
Hello, may I add something?
Sure.
Okay, I'm Kostas from Boing Boing Greek community. First of all, thanks for your inspired speech.
Thank you.
Can't resist to say that Pope and religion are extremely wealthy, so
I know.
I hope we were like them.
I wonder how they did it, but okay.
Yeah, they have the best business plan in the world.
Probably.
Yeah, right. Anyway, since you are in Greece,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask you and to add, do you know what the Greek word for freedom means? I mean, it includes the whole point of your presentation.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, the whole point. The Greek word for freedom is eleftheria, and is made of two words, elefs orio, which means reaching a limit, which includes duty. In order to be free, let's say, you have to have limits, and these limits are your duty. So the Greek word for freedom includes duty. So maybe you can have it in your mind.
Well, I'll definitely add it to the slides when I put them on SlideShare.
Okay.
It's a very good remark. Thank you for that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, most Greeks don't know it as well.
Good. See? Is that true? Do most Greeks not know that? That what's the word? Eleftheria?
Eleftheria.
Eleftheria means duty and freedom, that there is more to it than simply saying free.
I know that free as in beer.
Ah, yeah, well, yeah. with photos, it's all about the beer.
Actually, it's the code and the beer. The freedom is duty.
Well, maybe take the mic. That's easier than people will. People that have questions. That's.
I'm sorry, I didn't get your message from your speech. First of all, we were here in Greece, and you're probably aware we are facing a major crisis, our own crisis. It's probably because it's early. What I've gathered is that you are telling us that there is a crisis also in Joomla, and you expect us to react on it.
Yes. I'm trying to explain to you that on the product side, Joomla is going great. On the project side, there is a little bit of a crisis. And if we cannot solve that, then it's not looking very bright for
Okay,
Joomla.
let's give you an idea of what's going on in Greece. Here we have a political crisis, economic crisis, whatever you say. And everybody looking at the people, the civilians. And even if you are staying here, you come into cinema, to square, and you face why we see how we react. And I can't see how we are end users of Joomla anyway.
Well,
You don't give us a lead. Maybe it's my problem.
The answer to that is not easy. Because, as you say, you're considering yourself an end user. What I'm trying to tell you is that you are more than an end user. You are not only using the software, you have the opportunity and the means to give something back. And that can be a lot of different things.
By
Right?
participating in the community.
Yes. By finding a way, based on your own skills, an hour a week, 2 hours a month, to do something for that community, to become a practitioner, somebody that participates in that community. If we all try to figure out our own ways of doing that, all those little bits will help. If we all consider ourselves as end users and wait for somebody else to make that participation, stuff won't happen.
Okay.
That's my message.
We expect us to listen to something more.
But it's not, I cannot give you a manual how to do that. First of all, figure out for yourself.
I didn't say that. I mean, I was told that I'm here today because the political climate also here in Greece and the economic situation is not the best. I was glad to see to listen to something more.
Well, the rest of the day probably will be a little bit more cheering up.
Okay.
Hopefully.
Yes, hi Janssen. My name is Fotis.
Hi. You also Fotis?
Fotis, yes.
Are you brothers? do you like beer?
Yes.
Okay.
I studied in Germany.
Wow. See, you have to learn from him, Fotis. He knows really about beer. He doesn't only drink it, probably just he studied it.
Yeah, exactly. Let me tell you a few things about
Sure.
the Greeks. We are people that can be very dedicated to a cause.
Cool. We need that.
You gotta find the bottom, as we say in Greek. It's very difficult to find the bottom in Greece. For me, for myself, as I speak, I studied economics.
Mm-hmm.
I worked also for about 10 years on that kind of jobs, and then one day I dropped out, and then I started to do websites, web design first of all, because I was a totally stranger to code and everything, but the inspiration from guys like you,
Mm-hmm.
and from guys like Max and other guys on the internet,
And Fotis, of course.
Fotis, and they inspire me. I gotta say, guys like Fotis and like Dionysos, Mr. Dionysos over there, it's very inspiring to make us work harder, read harder, and work during the night when it's quieter. So I think it's more like an example to do the things you say than telling us to do. That's the thing with the Greeks. And participation gonna be very strong. We're in a very difficult position right now, as the Secretary has said, with money. And of course, we don't expect something from this seminar. But I think that's not the main idea. I think it's more coming in contact with you guys that you lead. Because I think you lead, not the leaders. I don't know the leaders from Joomla. I know you. I know the job that you do with Nuku.
Mm-hmm.
I know Fotis, what he does. This is the guys I know.
Okay. Two quick answers. One, I don't want your money, not at all.
Look,
I want your
giving you money.
I want your participation. And believe it or not, what you're doing right now is participating.
Yes, this is
Right?
why I'm here.
That's
Look,
participation.
I'm 40 years old, I have 2 daughters. I could be back home, 100 kilometers in Halkida on my island. And I'm here, listening to you and talking to guys.
When we go to Joomla events and other events, what makes the event great is the fact that people in the audience, people that are coming to the event, are part of it. They can participate in it, right? What I hate is going to give a talk, giving a talk for an hour, getting 5 questions, and then going home, right? I want to see you tell me what your problems are. I want to help you solve those. I want to see how you can get involved. I want to learn that, right? I want to learn that in Greek, it's not all that easy, of course, right? Difficult situation here. I'm not saying that you guys suddenly need to become master participants, but simply having this discussion already is a good step. Yes?
Hello. I'm Tassos. I would say that you have a project that you made a core and a core basis, and everything else is put it in modules and components and all this. I think that the problem is that the community goes to the components and the modules, and that's, I would say that the statistics of those that you produce, that it is, let's say, the future of a product. We have a stable core, so the community is going to the modules and the components. That's a balance, because if you have something that is solved in the component, you don't have to do it in the core.
Yes.
Or not, because this means that the core is less.
Okay.
It should be.
Okay.
So, either I think that the great mark is here that we need to extend the core, and to produce better components, and how the community is gonna. And the components should stay less.
Well, I agree.
You understand what?
Yeah, I understand.
So
I think I understand what you mean. I hope I'll try to replicate a little bit. So when you have a stable code base, it is natural that you're going to have a lot of extensions that extend that. That's why we built the framework in the first place.
And the community goes to the extensions,
Yes.
not to the core.
Now, the idea is that all the work that is done in extensions is GPL, and it has those freedoms. I'm not saying that all those extensions need to go into the core. That's a little bit silly. But I made that remark yesterday. There are 25, 30 CCKs. They're all doing the same, a little bit different. What if we could take that common base
And put it in the core.
and put it in the core? Everybody would win.
I think this is the future of the core. So
And
you have to persuade, let's say, some people that work on components, or certain component, to communicate with the core
Yes.
team and produce a better or extended core. That's
Yes.
the future.
And then participation can also mean if you, as an end user or an integrator, are going to use that extension, right? And you're going to implement it for a client, and you find a problem, then you either communicate that bug to that developer, or you even give him the solution. His extension becomes better, and the comment that he creates, he could then give back and see if some of that could be fit into the core. You get a pyramid, right? And the many of us are creating solutions that trickle up to the core and could strengthen the core.
Yeah.
I agree.
We have to close now. So
Sorry about
a
that.
big applause for Johan.